Ow! Ouch! Ren exclaims as he passes through the narrow entrance of the gulch. It's a very tight squeeze. As his head turns to look at his hand, his nose scrapes against the wall in front of him. The cut stretches across his palm. Flakes of skin stand up on the edges. He sees the pointed rock he cut his hand on and thinks, I'll have to take care of my hand when I have space. He turns back in the direction he was shuffling to, his hair brushing against the wall behind him. Gotta get moving. Wouldn't want to block anyone's path. This is Ren's second time hiking through a slot canyon. The first time making his way through Peekaboo and Spooky Gulch. Goofy names, Ren thought when he first heard them. He went on that journey with his wife, Anne, who couldn't keep to herself about how it's straight up miserable out here. Ren's lips tightened, and he held his breath every time Anne noisily complained around other people. Why can't she keep it to herself? Granted, they arrived too late in the middle of the hot summer day, but it was noticeably cooler once they entered the gulch. She continued to pester him throughout the hike, how uncomfortable it was in these tight spaces. At the beginning of the gulch, Ren was feeling a bit claustrophobic and nervous himself. He hesitated before navigating over difficult terrain, wondering if this was the best idea to move onward. But after some time, the squeezing, shuffling, and clambering became thrilling. Ren's eyes stayed wide and focused on the path in front of him. He helped Anne onto rocks confidently and persisted forward, marching with each step. Weeks later, Ren pitched the idea to visit another slot canyon to Anne. He smiled and waited for her answer. She looked away from him to consider for a moment, then looked back, saying, I didn't really have fun last time, but if you want to go, you should go. He frowned and said, You don't want to come with me? Not really. I don't like how cramped it is and it's so hot. It's really not that bad. Plus, I'd be all alone. Again. Well, last time you weren't paying any attention to me anyways. Just go. You'll be fine. Ren knew it wasn't true. He helped her the whole way through. Anne sounded frustrated, and Ren's cheeks turned red. He shouldn't have gotten himself excited. Shouldn't have mentioned anything. Anne took a deep breath and put her arms around Ren's neck, then said, You liked it a lot, so I want you to have fun. Just please be safe. So then, Ren went, remembering last time he saw a warning sign to bring at least a gallon of water per person per day. He thought that was far too much water to bring because of the weight and decided against it. He never brought much water on trips anyways. Ren left at 4 o'clock a.m. It took him 2 hours to drive to the trailhead. He would beat the busy hiking traffic and the heat of the sun. He read the trail sign as he arrived. Dusty Demon Gulch. He nods his head, then hikes down the path that leads to the gulch. The gulch has completely enthralled Ren. Without hesitation, he winds through the corkscrew passages, studying every detail on the rusty red rock walls. He climbs over rocks and slides down some too. Despite the early time, he's sweating more than ever now. He can feel his breath bounce back at him when he sidesteps through 2 skinny walls. The cramped walls don't bother him. This is a challenge Ren is more than happy to overcome. Occasionally, he stops and stares straight up, jaw hanging low as he glares at the sky up past these skinny canyon walls. Eventually, Ren comes across a wide rock hallway of sorts where he has just enough room to sit off to the side and take a break. Even though he hasn't seen anyone at this point, he doesn't want to get in their way when people eventually start passing through. He didn't even realize he was panting until he sat up against a wall. He took out a plastic bottle and squeezed out half of the water down his gullet, letting out a refreshed afterwards. As Ren is catching his breath, he turns his head to look down the path where he'll be going. It's unusually dark, he thought. The path bends around so he can't see past it. Doesn't bother him. It's starting to warm up already, and any break from the desert heat is a welcome one. He pulls out his phone and checks how far he's come through the canyon. Damn, only 1.6 miles traveled, still 2.2 to go. To Ren, it feels like he's been hiking forever, but there's still so much more to go. Ren snaps up on his feet. "Aw, yeah!" he says out loud, as he has a boost of energy from this news. He's as excited as ever. Ren hears footsteps to his right and snaps around. "Oh, hello," an older woman greets him. She is with an older man. "Oh, hi!" Ren's voice squeals, then there is silence afterward. Ren's face burns red and his lips squeeze together. He talked to himself out loud in front of these people, and now he can't even talk to them normally. "Have fun," the woman said. The man nods his head, and they move on. Ren waits 15 minutes, takes a deep breath, then he starts off. He goes around the bend and heads into the dark part of the gulch, which he soon discovers isn't dark for too long. He can see the light shining farther down the path. It sure does feel cooler here, he thinks. He stops, immediately noticing to his left, just around the bend, is a gaping hole in the side of the rock wall. But this isn't just any hole. To Ren, it looks like a whole friggin' cave.
What?
He exclaims. He's smiling, mouth wide open. His eyes are darting around the cave entrance. He squints to see as far into the cave as possible, but it's just too dark. Ren frowned. He didn't bother to bring a flashlight. He didn't anticipate finding anything worth using it for.
Oh yeah, my phone.
He thought out loud. He pulls out his phone and turns on the light. Time for a side journey. Ren crouches to enter the cave. As he does, an icy sensation runs from his feet and up inside his body, causing him to shiver. The instant drop in temperature was a strange, but refreshing feeling. Not far in is a split off in two directions. Ren takes a second to scan both paths, then heads into the one on the right, turns the corner, and then stops. Dead end. Nothing interesting at all.
Okay, the other direction then.
Ren has walked for 7 minutes on the left pathway when he begins to shiver from the cold. Such a bizarre thing to be too cold and too hot on the same day, he thinks. While it's pretty neat to be in a cave, there's not much to see compared to outside. No interesting shapes besides the bumpy walls. He's also began to pick up on a faint sound, deep and rumbling. It's coming from all around him, but mostly beneath him. He's listening curiously, placing his ear close to each of the side walls with his eyebrows furrowed. He gets on his hands and knees with his ear almost touching the ground. He thinks it has to be water running underground.
Whoa,
he says quietly, and continues on. Soon after, it doesn't take long before Ren's nostrils flare up. He places his shirt over his nose and with disgust grunts.
Ugh.
For a moment, he's ready to head back and be done with his side journey. But at the very end of his phone light, he can see the vague outline of a wall. This must be the end of the cave system. Might as well finish it. Before, Ren was speeding through the cave pretty quickly, but now he's pacing slowly towards the end wall. With each step of the way, the smell gets worse, and the noise gets louder. He thinks the smell just has to be a dead animal, but doesn't see a body anywhere even as he approaches the wall. He knows where the smell is coming from now. The wall has a small hole towards the bottom, barely bigger than Ren's head. He can feel the air wafting at him from that hole and hitting his face. Ren bends down trying to get a look inside. He can hear the rumbling coming from this very hole. He wants to see what's inside but can't quite yet. His heart is thumping. His imagination runs rampant. What could be in there? He gets on his knees. He leans in closer and lets go of his shirt over his nose. He places his hand on the wall for support.
Oh, what?
Ren flings back to see what his hand just touched. It felt wet, warm, and hairy. He sees some kind of twitching mass of meat sticking out of the wall above the other hole. It looks like rotten zombie flesh. As it wriggles, a liquid oozes from cracked pores. How did he not see that thing sticking out of the wall before? He has this crazy sensation coming from his right hand, like there are bugs crawling in his arm and out of his skin. Taking a look, he freezes a stare at the bizarre phenomenon happening to his hand. The cut that Ren completely forgot to treat earlier has stretched wide open. Lumps distend from inside the wound, bend outwards, and wrap onto the skin around his hands. Ren is so shocked at what he's seeing that for a moment, all he does is stare.
Ugh! Oh God, what is this?
His voice yells hoarse and shaky. Well, it can't be any good, he thinks. He needs to find help fast. He stumbles upwards, regains his balance, then launches off in the direction he entered the cave. Ren's phone light is bobbing up and down the cave walls as he sprints through. He's careful not to bang his head on the cave ceiling. He doesn't stop to look at anything. He doesn't even stop for a break. His mind is focused. Don't trip. Keep moving. Breathe in. Breathe out. He has no clue what will happen to him if he doesn't receive help. He's thinking, maybe this is some fast form of necrosis. Will my arm die on my body and fall off? Maybe just dangle limp and lifeless? His hand feels much heavier now, like he's carrying a dumbbell. How much is my hand swelling? He soon sees light ahead of him. He slows down, a bit relieved to exit the dark cave. The heat hits Ren hard. It feels good for a moment compared to the cold cave, but soon he's already starting to sweat. He bends down, breathing hard. Ren lifts his head and looks at his hand. No, 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 he says, panicked. The lumps have continued to grow, wrap, and layer around his entire arm. He can't even see the fingers of his hand anymore. His entire hand is just one big mass of skin. Not only that, but now he sees everything from his wrist up to his forearm start to swell up like a balloon. and those growths now start to split open. Whatever Ren touched has caused his body tissue to grow and adhere to him. One thought lands in his head. I gotta get out of here fast. He checks the time. 8:02 a.m. Ren sprints in the direction he entered the gulch. It's faster that way, but you can only go so fast in these narrow passages. He shuffles quickly through the tight trail, climbing back up slippery rocks and jumping back down them too. He's now 3/4 of a mile back to the beginning. His arm is overgrown and starting to weigh him down. His arm bangs against the jagged and swirly rocks, and Ren's pretty sure he's kicked it a few times. It might have been a mistake to travel back through the entrance. It's obvious why people enter this way and not the other. The rocks are more difficult to climb from this direction. And what will he do if he runs into someone? He wouldn't be able to squeeze past them. I can't stop, he thinks. He's heaving breaths in harder than ever, but he's ignorant to the exhaustion and keeps going. At the point when Ren finally sees the narrow passage that entered him in, he is trudging sluggishly with all the effort he can give. His breaths are long and rough. He can feel his arm dragging on the ground. One final push, he thinks. He turns his body sideways and sidesteps into the final skinny slot. He takes a step, inhales, drags his body, and then exhales sharply. The weight on his right side is immense, and his body is scraping through the corkscrew rocks. He takes a step, inhale, drag body, exhale, step, inhale, drag, exhale, repeat. Ren sees the exit. He's almost free. His body feels impossible to move, but he scrunches his face, clenches his teeth, and pulls as hard as he possibly can. He's only 3 steps away, then 2, then 1. One final pull. He screams as he moves forward for the final time. I'm out. I made it out, he thinks. Ren tugs forward again and is stopped. He looks down and can see his left arm, his legs, and his torso. But when he twists his head back towards the slot, all he can see is his bulging shoulder in front of his face. The rest of his arm is still stuck between the rock walls, out of view.
Oh, please, no! No, no, no! Fucking A! No!
Ren yells at the top of his lungs. You made it to the end of the video. You're awesome. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me. To see what happens in this story next, please subscribe. Make sure you turn on the bell for notifications. It does take a bit to illustrate, write, and music produce these stories. I do it all myself. You'll see my skills develop as time goes on. To support the channel, head over to my Patreon. Link is in the description. I'm only asking for $3 a month. Let me know what you think of this story in the comments. Tell me what I could do better, how I can improve, anything like that. Keep being awesome, and you enjoy the rest of your day.